Um, well, I wasn't going to say anything. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. It's good to. Are we all right, Tim? Are we going? I forgot to ask you. Okay, good. It's good to be with you. And speaking of Andy, I appreciate him helping out last week, switching out with me on pretty short notice. Actually, we were both a little. I was going to say, he's done it to me before, so I don't feel terrible, but I appreciate him doing it. We were just very under the weather. I guess the election night, we blamed it on that, but it still lingered into Thursday, so we had some kind of little something going on. But we're glad to be back and glad Andy filled in for me. I appreciate that very much. Somebody pointed out I wasn't here last Wednesday, and they were expecting an election talk, but we're not going to do that. But if you want to ask questions afterwards, we're happy to do that. And Andrew will answer the ones that I don't want to talk about. So it's good to see you, Andrew, and survived elections as well. So when we going back a couple of weeks now, we talked about kind of conflict and strife and dealing with people, whether that was, that topic came up because of just talking to people, things you run into in your everyday life. It was everything from when I'm out driving, how to deal with people and all these various things in the workplace and all that. So I don't want to go back and rehash all that, but leaving class, two comments came up. So I'm going to kind of pick up on those. One of them was, can you talk about this, uh, the self, the overcoming ourself as we work to deal with other people? So I'm going to touch on that a little bit, but somebody else said, and I don't even remember saying it, to be honest, you said you were overwhelmed in life, and that's what you were going to talk about, but you didn't think you could get through it. Can you talk about that? So I'm not alone in being overwhelmed, I guess. So somebody brought that up, and they kind of are tied together, believe it or not. At least in my mind. We'll see if they are in 45 minutes here. So we're going to kind of pick up on that strife, conflict, remembering for those that may not have been here. We have war and peace. And I pointed out that war isn't really the true opposite of peace, if you really think about it, and the way we have to deal with it in kind of politics and diplomacy and various things. Peace and conflict are the real opposites. And there are various ways to resolve conflict. One of those is war, and talking about that. So kind of getting back to that, um, we're going to kind of hop into the overwhelmed part real quick, but I want to pick up with a couple of verses as we think on the striving with peace and dealing with that. Caleb, would you mind Hebrews 12, verses 14 and 15? And then, Andy, if you wouldn't mind, Philippians 2, 3 through 8. And we'll kind of wrap up this kind of dealing with peaceably with others, whether you're like me and you get irritated waiting for your espresso and 15 people in front of you are getting frappuccinos, or you're trying to drive here and somebody cuts you off, or you just got that difficult person in the workplace that you're really trying to be that Christian and they go out of their way to make it rough. Those kind of things we deal with every day in our lives. Kind of pick up that and get to the overwhelmed part because it's kind of tied together and it deals with us a little bit. Kaylin, would you mind Hebrews 12, 14 and 15?
Strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled.
Okay, that word strive in the Greek, I believe the pronunciation is dioko. But what it is, it's not just, I want to do that. I'm trying to do that. The word in the Greek is actually like I'm running towards that. I'm aggressively, it's even used in warfare. I'm aggressively, here's my mission. I'm going to accomplish that. So it's a striving for peace. That again gets back to the action on our part. Action on our part to deal with everyone. As we know another verse, as much as it depends on you. But again, that striving is a very just aggressive. I'm going to do it. That's a decision we have to make before we end up in those situations. Right? That makes sense. Andy, if you wouldn't mind with that one, Philippians 2, 3 through 8.
Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery, something to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking on the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross.
Okay. Let's see, I asked Andy in particular to read that one so he can help me out on a few things. From a preacher's standpoint, Bill touched on this actually the other day and did quite a good lesson on that essence of overcoming sin and our sinful nature is overcoming the self, right? It's at the end of the day, you think about it like, here's I don't want to sin, but here's my temptation. Am I going to overcome that or whatever? Here's the struggle in dealing with somebody. Or I'm just an angry person, or I'm just fill in the blank. That's my nature. I got to overcome that, right? That's what this is. Humility, do nothing from selfish ambition, all these kind of things we just talked about, Andy. Count others more significant than yourselves. Do we put ourselves down to do that, Andy? Is that what it's talking about?
Because this is written to Christians, and being in Christ is not to be put down, because there's nothing better I could be than in Christ. No better place I could be than in Christ. But he's referencing Christ, who was at not just the upper echelon, he was the upper echelon,
Right. Yeah.
being God incarnate. And even he did that. So I think just a comparison of Christ, you were already dealing with somebody who had not just value, but he's the Alpha and the Omega and the beginning and the end. And he chose to do that. Which really, I'm seeking something higher. I'm not diminishing myself. I'm seeking something higher when I do that. When I put someone else before me, I'm actually seeking something higher, not something lesser.
Right. So we get along with people. We've decided that's the effort. We've got to decide to do it. We don't let them run over us. It doesn't mean they're better than us, but it's the mindset of, as Andy just said, there's more than us. If what Andy just read several times, I see the words humbled, humility jump out several times. So it's overcoming that self. Humility is the way we do that. Now, when we're overwhelmed, strive for peace with everyone. Am I everyone? Do we ever stop and think about that? How can I have peace within me for a second? Again, not talking about in the sense of I'm getting back to that I'm better than anyone or other people don't matter, but I'm overwhelmed. Do we ever stop and think, let's get away from this absence of conflict towards peace within ourselves? Sometimes we bring on the overwhelm, right? Sometimes it is, man, I quit saying this. As I said, this came up because somebody, apparently I mentioned it at the start of class a couple of weeks ago. I quit saying what else can go wrong next. It took me 3 weeks and a whole lot that went wrong to get to that point. But when I mean overwhelmed, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Some of that, okay, is it that internally, that peace me dealing with it? Yeah, some of it after a while, I'll tell you. Some of it was just literally what could go wrong next. How can we strive for peace within ourselves? Is it the same thing? Is it the same thing? Thoughts before I get into some other thoughts on that. Let me give you an example. We don't want to get into our Well, no, actually, we're going to talk about that too. I won't say we're not going to get into our personal business, but we're supposed to do that a little bit, guys, right? Right? We're supposed to do that a little bit. So Sonia's a little nervous at the moment. I mean, when it goes, some of it becomes comical, right? I mean, like it started with like the lawnmower, transmission goes out on that, right? Whatever, big deal. Except that's my escape time from the world around me, right? And I like to keep my lawn look nice. But $800, whatever it was on the transmission. All right. Then let's see, what else? Air conditioner goes out. And not like the few days ago when it's in the 60s. I mean, it was still like 90s when it goes there, right? Air conditioner goes out right after that. Let's see. The oven. Oh, yeah. Cake baker. In the middle of doing a wedding cake. No, I mean, literally in the middle of, what was it? It was somebody from Paige Higgins, in the middle of doing Paige's wedding. Something's not right, so I got to go over to British Vicky's Airbnb next door to finish baking the cake in the middle of the night to make sure it's ready for. No, I mean, no joke. Like, as I said, it became comical after a while. It's like, what else can break in this house all of a sudden? It was something else, even. I forgot what it was. It was like, boom. Even the printer, goes out for school. Yes, but it was like that kind of stuff. Okay, that's just the stuff kind of thing, right? But it literally was just like boom, 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 boom. What next kind of thing. All right. Then there's, you got the family side of thing. We all have our family issues. What do we got in here? I don't know, 18 people, whatever we got in here right now. Okay. There's 18 problems in this room. Okay. I just tell you. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I can tell you there are. Some of it maybe is like, yeah. Let's do the Trump rally. There's 800 problems in here right now. Right? That's right. Yeah, preacher count. Yeah. All right. Let's be honest. Maybe it's a simple thing like this. I got a headache and don't feel super good right now. Maybe it's that, right? Maybe it's like, oh, tomorrow I'm kind of nervous to go into work. I got this thing I've got to be ready for, and I'm not quite ready for it, whatever, right? Maybe it's your mother who shouldn't be living by herself and is really stubborn about that. Fell down some steps in some place she shouldn't have been in the first place. Not just broke her shoulder, took out her best friend of, 80 years that was with her, busted up her face, and decided like a couple of days later to call you, right? When the outpatient surgery is scheduled, to fix it. Um, and then it went downhill from there, guys. Okay, you got that. Maybe it's just say we got a little stuff. We got couples in. It's just little married stuff. I have problems with my spouse, whatever. You got kids, you got problems, right? I don't care what age they are. All right, so we got that. And trust me, those of you with the younger ones, it gets worse when they get older. Trust me. Sorry to ruin it for you now. So it doesn't matter the age, right? Right? You got that. You've got that. Maybe something at work. Maybe there's financial issues you got. Lost a job or some business deal going slower than you like. And, but you hate to complain about that stuff because you know somebody's in worse shape, right? Like all that happening at one time for weeks, overwhelmed. All right. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about here. Oh, in studying for this lesson on the striving for peace that helped. There's a whole bunch of other verses I want to get into, but that's what I want you to think. Because like I said, we kind of laugh about it. I'm not a genius. I just know people. That's what I do for a living, is figuring out these people right here, and I need them to be right here. Whether that's voting or passing a legislation or what, that's what I do. I got to figure people out, right? That's all I do. Polls, focus groups, all kinds of stuff. So not to get into anybody's business, but I promise you there's those kind of problems in here right now. Okay? Hold up a mirror, I can just tell you right now. They're mine. Okay? But there's others. Part of mine was solved just inadvertent conversation with somebody. And like, hey, what? Let me take that part off the plate. Right? Let me help out with that part. Don't even worry about that. Let me help out with that. No big deal. A brother in Christ. Just casual conversation happened. I know if I would have gone to like 15 other people and said, can you help this, this, and this, that would have happened. Right? But wait a minute now. I can't have problems. Right? I got to show up at church dressed as nice as I can. Looking nice. Here's all my family coming around, acting right. All the little kids like the little ducks, walking in a row. Everybody well behaved. Do you feel like that? Am I alone in that? That's when we show up. We're supposed to say, how can I help you? Here's the problem. And it didn't really hit me till I got that slap in the face from just, like I said, kind of inadvertent conversation with a brother and like a friend. It was just like somebody I bump into at church. It's like, man, why did I never think to do that before? I've got this internal war. Let's get beyond the conflict. That was what was going on, just to be real honest. That's the test of faith that we have sometimes. Am I alone in that? Other people got problems? Whew, man, I'm getting nervous. I was going to have to go to a different church or something, Andy. Oh, man. That's what we deal with. But like I said, I feel bad complaining about that because I knew like 10 other people in way worse shape than mine. I knew mine would go away in time. Partly if I just sat back and weathered the storm, I knew most of it would go away. You know, some of it took that active things to do. But in reading about this conflict and peace, I kept thinking about like, that's this internal conflict. We don't ever think about that. Never think about that. It's to the point, like, I don't mind you guys knowing we're not a HIPAA violation because I'm telling you, I went to my doctor for my annual checkup, and he's like, you got to sleep. That's what he said. I'm giving you this pill. I'm like, no, I don't do that stuff, man. I think so. He's like, no, you don't understand. 2 weeks, that's all I want. I want you to get some sleep. He's like, I can tell. This is my, years. Like, that's the shape of it. Like, just, like, all right, Mike, I don't even like to take Tylenol, man. Like, I don't like that. I need you to sleep. You have to take care of yourself. And then he brought up a verse about, he's a Christian. He's here in town. Goes to another church. He's like, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your wife. And you can't take care of those kids. And you can't take care of your people at your church who need you. Those were his exact words. So take care of yourself. Do we ever do that, though? That internal conflict, strife? Whew, man. Yes, sir.
I think one aspect of stewardship of self, we've talked already about one evidence of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about stewardship and how that gets beyond just the giving of our money, but the use of ourselves in various ways,
Right.
whether it's our time or our influence or anything. How we manage ourselves is a Christian stewardship aspect.
Right.
And there is a time, if you pardon the expression, but I think everybody will know. I wouldn't say this in a youth class because they wouldn't necessarily know what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
They go home and tell their parents that Andy said this.
Right.
There is a time to be spiritually selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It's not selfish, but it is a focus on self.
Right.
Because I cannot help other people except from a position of strength.
Exactly.
So it's not that it's actually selfish, but it is some time to focus on self. It's just a term I use about spiritual self.
No, I think
but it's in the essence of somebody else's best interest
right.
for me to look at that. Look at me.
100%. 100%. That's why that concept, and I never, really thought about it till we were doing this study on conflict. If that conflict's on inside of me, that overwhelmed, even like I said, some of it was just zero I had control over, right? But even when that kind of stuff's happening, it's beating you and beating you and beating you and beating you down, and you don't take the time to fix yourself, who are you going to take it out on? Whew. My wife can't raise her hand. Yeah, there you go. That's when we got a problem with the guy on the road that just cut us off. And I'm sitting there tapping my foot waiting for my espresso, right? Is that where we take it sometimes? We're not. I've decided, one, maybe I just need to fix it inside of myself. Because look, trust me. So we laugh, we joke. She puts her hand up. I knew what was going on in here. So I was being mindful of, she knew. So it was like, oh, let's get the buffers out. Like, I knew. I was aware. Like, it wasn't like I didn't know I was worn down. Worn was, beaten down is a better word for it, just to be real blunt. Right. I knew, though. So I wasn't going to take it out on my wife and kids. I may have been a little more detached than normal, or just like this. That's always there. Let's be honest. You're not going to know unless you know me what's going on here, or I want you to know. That's just me. But like, I didn't want to snap. I didn't want to yell at the wrong time or whatever, say the wrong thing or give a little dismissive comment to the kid or whatever, let alone the people out in public. Or I show up here where life has got to be perfect and I say the wrong thing to one of my brothers and sisters or something, or they get the idea I don't have it all together. Right? Do we do that? We just, we've got to walk in this like we've got it all together, but we don't. But as Andy said, 100% selfish. I kind of like that word for it, to be honest. It's, you fly, you put your mask on first before you put your little kids. We were in Israel I don't know how it was last year. I was over, whatever it was. Time flies. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we were standing in Capernaum. Right, that's where Jesus studied. Here's where Peter's house was. All this kind of stuff. And when you turn around away from the city, you're back. You see this mountain. And you don't see a bunch. There's no others around there. It's just it. If you've ever been there, if you haven't, go, not right now, but go sometime. Actually, I can get you in and out now. You'll be all right, but just don't go by yourself. But you turn around and there's just this mountain, and all I can think of is, you read, Jesus went to the mountain. Like, that's probably it. And all I could think of was, man, Jesus, with all he went through, do you think he wasn't mindful of the strife? You think he didn't have that? It says in the Bible he's tempted the same way. It deals with our same problems. All right. He was under stress sometimes. Right. That's where he went. Getting back to yourself. It's not selfish. He's taking care of himself so that he can continue the ministry. Do we need to do that with ourselves? Sometimes. With humility. So let's find some verses about that. Any comments before we hop into a few verses? Anybody else want to share, so I'm not the only one spilling off? What would we say, spill a tea or whatever you were joking around with the little baby? Whatever the words are these days. Yes, sir, Andrew.
I forget who I was listening to recently, but they were talking about the second greatest commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself, and talking about the ways we talk to ourselves and treat ourselves sometimes. And if we were going to treat other people like that, we'd be treating other people pretty sorry.
Right.
And so taking care of yourself and loving yourself and asking for help, which is something I'm not good at.
You're not alone, Andrew? Oh, man, you know what? You can ask me for this shirt. I'm going to give it to you. Like, whatever you want. But, man, I cannot ask.
Asking for help, giving that help, but, taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people, because we do want to love other people. And the second greatest commandment.
Exactly.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah. That's it. That's what getting in the love. It's kind of weird to put selfish and love in the same word, but we got to have it. It's not a put down. Like I was down. Like I said, I don't mind telling you. Like if it help you get to heaven, I'll talk about it. I'll tell you what I've done right, wrong. If it'll help you on your journey, I'll talk about it. I wasn't putting myself down because of my situation. You know what I mean? It wasn't that kind of overwhelmed, but it wouldn't take long for me to get to that. Like I wasn't there, but I was on track. Like what woe is me? What's the little Eeyore or whatever from the, like I was starting to have that. The Charlie Brown, nothing ever goes right kind of thing. I got rocks like that. I was like, man, what else? What's next? Whew, how am I going to deal with these shoulders? Are just like, wearing down. I mean, it was like that. I mean, no joke. When your doctor's making you take a sleeping pill, just like that's the first thing he notices when you sit down. It wasn't my a little overweight, need to get my cholesterol fixed. It was you got to have a sleeping pill, right? Like that kind of stress was where it was at. But it wasn't that. It was me, and that losing the love. But I can tell you, like it wouldn't have been to that point, but where I was getting to not show the love. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't going to put myself down. Like again, some of it was just crazy out of control stuff. So it wasn't putting myself down, but I can tell you it was affecting the loving other people and the wanting to help. Like I love Andrew's comment. Like I really, there's nothing I can't think I wouldn't give to somebody if they asked. But man, I don't ever want to ask. Do we have that? Do we show up?
I don't know if this fits in or not, but this thought kind of came to my mind. All of us have probably been there. I'm not a patient person. I've got things I want to do. I got places I'm supposed to go.
Right.
And sometimes I almost have blinders on because I've got my mindset on getting
Oh
there.
yeah.
And then sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to do it, and there's nothing you can do to change
Right.
it. Example, I can think of one time I was on a trip and flights were canceled, thunderstorms. I'm stuck in an airport. I'm upset because I know I've got to be somewhere at a certain time, and I just have to sit back and think it's not going to happen.
Right.
And there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to try to be content. And I was reminded when I was thinking about that about an episode on Andy Griffith called Man in a Hurry. I don't know if y'all remember that one. There's a guy that's got to get someplace. His car breaks down in Mayberry,
Right.
and he wants everything done just like this, and it's going to be a while.
Right.
And finally, at the end, he just kind of relaxes. So I found myself in that situation. It takes me a while, but finally I just have to accept the circumstances. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later, I may be back at the same place, but
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's good for me to be in a situation like that where I can't control things, and I just have to give it up.
We have to give it up. That's where, I mean, you just have to. That's why God's there for us, right?
Look, I'm gonna help everybody out right now.
All right.
Solve everyone's problems.
Okay. Where were you? Where were you a month ago, Kaylin? Man. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to think about it. Like, anything in life only falls into two categories: things you can control, things you can't. So if you can control it, what are you worried about?
Right.
You can impact the outcome. Just change it. If you can't control it, what are you worried about? Nothing you can do can impact the outcome.
Exactly.
See, it's that easy, guys.
It is that easy. Like, I've said this plenty of times. I probably said in here. Life is real simple. Here's what we got to do. You're right. The living it, the people we got to deal with to get to it. That's the hard part. Living Christian living, it's not hard. Love God, love other people, right? I mean, am I missing something? Here's what you just said. In fact, I've got it in here. It's the Stoic. It's a biblical thing, so we can talk about it there in Acts. Paul's talked to him. The Stoic. There's a Stoic philosophy. Epictetus was the one that wrote it. Horrible life. All this stuff this guy went through, and it was essentially what Kaylin just said. Our goal is to identify: can I control it or can't I? Is it under my thing? Do that. And there's some biblical stuff that goes along with that too. Put it on God. Don't be anxious. All these kind of things. In fact, we're going to read a few verses along those lines here in a minute. But is that easier said than done? Like I just tell you, the prayer, like the prayer, that knowing God wasn't there for me. It wasn't that kind of struggle with faith, right? It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't one of those like my prayers aren't being answered or anything. Like I literally didn't know what to pray for. Like that kind of. Have you ever had that? Like that kind of overwhelmed, like I don't know, like I don't know if I'm supposed to be asking for something or begging for something or like not even thinking of myself. What can I do for it? Like it was like, whoo, God, I don't even know what to say right now. I mean, but I don't have a clue right now.
And there's your prayer.
Yeah, that was, trust me, that was my prayer for a while. I was like, I don't even know what next. Just, like that's it. That's it. And again, some of that I could control, some of it not. But I got a wife. I got like 3 other households I'm taking care of. I got elections. Ooh, yeah, there's work going on in the middle of all this stuff. Ooh, there's and I've got some business stuff that's on the other side of the world where people don't respect your time zone differences. So I got that all. Whew. Oh yeah, the doctor wasn't wrong. I need this sleeping pill. It's just I'll admit it to everybody. It was like that kind of stuff. What next? I let my wife say something first, and then Susan.
Well, I was just going to have you tell, this is your story to tell, but just with that giving up control, one of the stresses you had was that meltdown with your mom where she melted down because she couldn't control.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to have you share that conversation because that's And it was blown up, it was dramatic, and it was screaming fit. But I think a lot of times that we have that internally too. She just verbalized it.
Oh, yeah. Mom, well, I'll let you tell it, actually. My mother, it's just me. I don't know. We kind of, we see each other, everybody. We don't know about our lives. It's just me. I'm an only child. Dad died long time, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago, something like that. So it's me to take care of mom. Our Bible tells me I got to take care of mom. Okay. People say, why are you good at politics? I say, well, my dad was a preacher. My mom's just kind of tough to deal with. Let's be honest. That's why I'm good at politics. Like my dad was even an elder at one time. Here's what we need to pray for, too. I'll give a quick plug for our preachers and our elders. I'll never forget the Sunday after my dad became an elder. We're sitting at lunch. It was around the time Sonia and I were dating. I was 15, 16, somewhere around there. I said, well, Dad, what do you think about being an elder now? I get to be twice as lonely. That was his reply to me. I get to be twice as lonely now. So I won't ask Andy to comment, but pray for that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's just me taking care of mom. She's a couple hours away in the middle of nowhere. Not even a doctor there. Goes into town, once a week or something like that. Like that kind of nowhere. And she's had the health problems. Total blow up, as Sonia says, just like whatever was on her mind and her heart came out. Some people would call it abusive. I don't use that. But mom was just venting, right? And I told her, make sure you do that to me. Now, I couldn't handle it that time, to be honest. It was right in the middle of all the overwhelming. But I didn't want her to do that to everybody else around her, so everybody else was still around. I knew where it was coming from. But it was her coming from her overwhelmed, right? She's facing a certain stage in life. She's falling all the time. She's alone. She's got friends that are dying around her, or have Alzheimer's, and all this kind of stuff. It's what she on a daily basis. And she's just going to visit a friend, and she fell down the stairs on top of her best friend, who just got almost the worst of it, even though I'm still in the hospital. But it's like, okay, what do we need to do? Because the insurance doesn't work in Tennessee, so we can't bring her down here. Like those kind of things. So she's venting and blows up at me, right in the middle of the overwhelmed. Talk about, God, please, what do I do next? I don't know how to ask for next. I don't know what that is. But the strife, the lack of peace was there.
Mm-hmm. That was where her she said a whole lot of other things, but that was the gist of it, is that she was in a situation where she could not control anything. Mm-hmm. Her shoulder after the surgery didn't heal at all. Mm-hmm. Pins fell out. She's back at square one, but it was her verbalizing over and over again, I am not in control.
Oh, man. I'm not in control. I'm not. Is that our problem? Our plans are coming along and they're not quite right? Is that where part of the overwhelm comes from? All right. In the middle of the overwhelm, I didn't even try to get control. There were days how do I survive the day? But she's right. That's what she's saying. In the middle of it all, the whole world crumbling, the whole overwhelmed, I'm not in control. And I said, I know. I made that mistake. I know. And then I said, I understand, which I don't understand. So it's a whole different part of the conversation. So there was no way to diffuse the situation and use all my crisis management and all my peace negotiating skills. They don't work on mine. But it was that kind of thing, right? It was that kind of thing. Do we ever get to that point in our lives where, you're right, Caitlin. You're 100% dead on. What can I control? What can I not? Do we try to control too much? I can really control that, right? No, I can't. Sometimes just figuring out what we can control or not. How we deal with it is where, Matt, you mentioned your patience in that. There's a Hebrew word. It's not like a biblical Hebrew, but like one they use now. Savlanut is what it is. It's like they would kind of use for their word patience, but it's this like burdens, suffering. That's what's going on in the patience. It's like Job, right? We talk about the patience of Job. Like that's the word for it. Like boom, 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 just pounding down. And how you react with that around other people. That's how they do it. That's their focus is on the reaction part, not the beating down part. And these are people, we know what they're going through now. It's like it's out in the open now, but that's what they live like on a normal thing. It's like I said, the world blew up for them October 7th. That's their daily life in dealing with things. Resolute people, resilient people like you wouldn't believe. That's the word they use for that patience. The burden you were talking about, the airport, like all this kind of, that's the word for that. It's a burden. It's a burden. Oh, where do we turn to then? Are we alone in that? Is the Bible full of people? Did anything come to mind from our Bible of people?
Read half the
That's what I was kind of like putting the verses, and I looked down and like, well, I got to find something besides from Psalms because that's where they're all coming from. Yeah, let's read this. Actually, somebody, Psalm 61, 1-3. But tell me this while we're thinking about it, because I haven't touched on it earlier. When we're going through these things, like I said, we're looking around here, this is whatever, 20th, we'll round it up a little bit. And I know there's 20 problems. Can I help somebody solve their problem when I can't figure out how to deal with mine? Am I looking for my brother and sister if I don't know them? Like I said, you wouldn't have known I was going through this stuff. Those of you that know me a little better, like I'm the barometer with the campaigns and everybody. Like if I'm freaking out, like everybody knows it's over. Like they just go like, "Whoa!" In 2016, I got a phone call from New York right towards the end. Well, I won't discuss what happened. A big story came out, all this kind of stuff. I got a phone call like, "Hey, how you feeling?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. No big deal." Like, all right, and that's the worst. He's all right. Like, it's okay. I'll tell you if we're going to lose or whatever. But yeah, it's good. No big deal. That's me, right? You wouldn't have known it. But if we're all doing that to each other, how can I not know if I don't know Caitlin? And I don't know personally. You know what I mean? I can tell something's going on. Andy and I, we spend enough time together. And you can be a little kind of stoic about it too. But I'd like to think, we spent so much time. I know something's at least on Andy's mind. Hey, buddy, you all right? Is there something you want to talk about or whatever? He's the preacher, so he's at least once as lonely, right? You're not an elder, so you're not twice as lonely, right? Or people, do we need to make the effort in doing that? Because again, we know, like I said, you don't have to tell us, but I know there's problems in here.
There's an analogy, or just or I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a good illustration.
Right.
Mark 10,
Mm-hmm.
Bartimaeus is blind.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he would love to have his sight.
Right.
And the first thing he did, says, he sat by the roadside begging. So he wasn't
Right.
in his house lamenting
Right.
that he had no sight. He sat by the roadside begging. And then when Jesus came by, he cried out to him.
Yeah.
And I think by illustration, you've got this idea of I'm going to put myself in a place where somebody might be able to do something.
Right.
He sat by the roadside. And when Jesus walked by, he cried out.
Right.
And I've preached from that passage before, asking a congregation, don't expect your elders or your brethren to be mind readers.
Exactly. Oh, man.
Use the Bartimaeus example.
Andy just stepped on every one of my toes and didn't even know. Now, I mentioned the conversation I had. Just kind of inadvertent. I called, but we were talking about something else. I'm like, hey, well, yeah, we can do this. But by the way, let me help with this other thing over here. Like it wasn't, maybe I was asking for help, didn't even realize it kind of thing, right? But like I said, there's not, like some of you I know better than others, there's not one person in this room like you say, hey, can you do something? I won't say sure. As long as I can, physically, possibly, don't ask me for $1 million today because we're not past the overwhelmed part. But like you need something, I'll make sure you're fed, right? Like, and I know like we would do that for other people. That's our nature. But that asking for it, man, that's hard to do because we got to show up to this building all put together with no problems in our lives, right? We got to do, yep.
We've got to think more of seeing each other as true family rather than acquaintances. Or it's that true family of not feeling like people will judge us by our problems, where we can lay it out, get honest feedback, and know that we're still loved. And it doesn't always happen with everybody within the building because personalities can conflict or whatever, but we have to have that group that we can go to.
Oh, man. See, that's why we've been married for 30 years. That's how I was going to end the class a little bit. We're family, right? You know all the problems, not all necessarily, but you know what's going on in your family. Whether it's your immediate, here's the mom and dad and the kids, or here's, the aunts and uncles, or just maybe even to see each other at Thanksgiving, but you still know everybody's business and what's going on. And if there's a need, you hop in and help. Or are we that kind of family? Should we be? I think so. Yeah.
I was gonna say, kind of put it lightly, we tend to make our Sundays continue to be about showing teeth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the car ride up, you're snarling at each other.
Right. Oh, yeah.
The door, you're smiling at everybody.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, completely different. I mean, but
Yeah.
some concept like it's total chaos in the house, but especially if you got little kids, it is absolute chaos.
Right. Until you get in the parking lot, right?
Out the door,
Yeah.
car rides up there,
Mm-hmm.
chaos.
Yeah.
The second that parking brake is put in, smiles, everybody's dressed up, you get out of the car.
Oh, yeah. That's how we do it. It's like there's a little beacon on top of the church also that sends out a signal. We're in the parking lot. Everything's good. Hey, walk on in here. Everybody smile. Like, how can we be family when we don't do that?
Now, I believe there is a preacher here that quotes this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he quotes it enough, but James 5, verse 16. Therefore, confess your sins one to another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power and it's working. I feel like I've heard that once or twice. Once or twice.
But that's why we are that kind of church in terms of knowing what we should do, being more active about is what we got to do. It's getting back to that striving. Like it's an aggressive, like getting to deal with that peace. That includes our internal peace. We got to be aggressive, but that means looking for opportunities with each other to help out. And maybe it's a smile, right? Maybe it's an encouraging word. Maybe it's just, I think we make it hard. But sometimes it's just knowing we're not alone in this world, especially when they're overwhelmed and everything happens. When everything happens. Like I said, I was talking about, somebody Psalm 61, 1 through 3, would you mind that in? I don't know if and I know you've been there too. The prayer, like, I don't even know where to start. What am I asking for? What am I trying to do? I learned not to pray for patience. I learned not to say, what next? It can get worse. Right? I already know that. I know better than that already because God's showing me that. All right.
Did you pray for humility? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I don't know what I did. I don't know what it is. Everybody knows in politics and pray for humility. Now, that wasn't a story. Like, I know to go to God. I know that asking for help. That's not me. I'll tell you that real quick. But just like that burden, the dark cloud, the overwhelmed life, you're just trying to survive. Forget the day, like the minute, right? That's where it was at some points. It felt like how do I get through this next minute, right?
Sometimes we also, we're overwhelmed, but we minimize our own stress.
Yes.
So we make it where it's like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah.
Because so-and-so's
Oh.
whatever just happened.
See, that's what I did.
Their burdens are so much bigger than mine.
Right.
When in reality, everybody's overwhelmed as they're overwhelmed. Everybody has a different threshold.
Oh, there you go.
We're at that threshold, and it doesn't matter what's
Oh, it doesn't matter. Some people can do
start to say that it's not a big deal.
Right.
Is when it starts to become more of a big deal.
See, that's what I was doing. It's like, well, I know this person's going through worse. Like, even getting back to my mother, like, look, that's bad stuff. She's overwhelmed, right?
I was going to say that's perfect. I've had that conversation with my children.
Right.
So if you smash your toe, let's say, right, so you drop something really heavy,
right,
hard object right on your pinky toe, you just obliterate that thing.
Right.
Are you going to care that someone else has just been shot on the other side of the country?
Right.
Is that going to make the pain in your toe dissipate at
right.
all?
Right.
It will not.
No.
It will not. So to her point, it hurts.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with letting people know, look, man, my place is messed up. This hurts really bad. Don't guilt yourself and if someone else does somewhere.
Right.
worse off than me today.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're 100% correct. I just saw that time. Andy, if you wouldn't mind, Psalm 6. This is again Psalms you go to for that. I found a couple in the New Testament, but Psalms was kind of like the place to be for this kind of stuff. Would you mind 1 through 3 on chapter 61?
Hear my cry, O God, attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth I will cry to you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for you have been a shelter for me, a strong tower from the enemy.
The end of the earth. In the Hebrew, we think about a distance of thing. What that really is inferring is like beyond human understanding. Like we can't even fathom it. That's what that word actually is. So from the end of the earth, like I don't even understand from where it's so bad right now. I'm calling to you when my heart is faint. That word faint doesn't mean I'm having a bad day. It means overwhelmed is what that word is in the Hebrew. That burdened, carrying it all. That's what he's talking about. And David, like I said, the whole Psalms is full of that kind of stuff. But that prayer needs to be ours. That humility needs to be ours. That, okay, let me take care of myself. Whether it's just pray more about it, figure out how to resolve it, ask a brother, sister for help. Look out for their needs. All right, get back to self-help stuff. What's the common theme in improving yourself? If you get, like, even, I mean, it's in our Bible, but in general, serve other people, right? That gets back to that humility you asked. If I'm looking for other people, during financial strain, like some of that was resolved at one point. Like we've had all kinds of stuff. If you've had your own business, you've had difficult. One time it's like, okay, I'm not going to pay the next bill, and some money came in and everything. Like what? I don't know. 15 minutes later, some poor guy with his kid up here looking, have some money for food. Well, like that morning, I didn't have it to give the poor guy, and it wasn't like the beggars like we see, like the professional ones we see. I mean, it was like you could tell this was a guy trying to feed. Like the day before, I probably couldn't. But yeah, man, I had some money in my pocket. I could help that guy out. God's doing all this in our lives when we look for it, when we're overwhelmed. We just have to remember that. But I guess the key point is being family. Like I said, that's why we've been running around together a long time. That's how it's going to end up. We know our family's business. We know, like I know Mom's got some troubles right now, but you know what? I also know I got a cousin with some health issue, pretty serious cancer things he's going through. We've got all kinds of, forget the kids, there's all kinds of stuff going on with the kids. And right, there's always something, right? You know what's in your family, and you're working to help with that as best you can. And that's what we've got to do here. Any closing thoughts before we go?
David wrote most of those Psalms that are crying out.
Yes.
I don't think it's coincidental that he was called a man after God's own heart.
Oh, man. David's my favorite in the Bible. And he was, it's all right. No, that David's my encouragement. The overwhelmed and, man, I messed up again, God. What do I do? Let me write another psalm to put in here for people thousands of years later to read and help them through that too, right? That's how I feel. So anyway, I hope I haven't, I got about a comfort zone, but I feel it's something we need to be mindful of and ready to do as a congregation, and know each other's needs in business without that nosiness, inappropriate part to it. But we've been around. We got 5 kids from now. I know we got younger parents with younger kids. Some of you years are, something's going on. Ask them, how's the kids, right? Some of us, we're dealing with older parents now, and somebody else is dealing, hey, how's it going? Mom or dad or whatever. Those little things like that, just starting a conversation, you never know what you're going to get for a response, right? It gets us past that. We're in the parking lot now. We all got it together. When you ask an actual question, how you doing? There's a little engagement happening. You never know what you're going to get, right? All right. Anybody before we go? Everybody? One last thing. All right.
I heard once that the statement of how are you, hey, how are you, is
Mm-hmm.
if you translate it, it's actually how does your heart feel today?
Oh, yeah.
And not how are you. So maybe if you change the verbiage of how you're asking the question,
Uh-huh.
people might be like, oh, wait, let me actually think on this question. And I think it's important to not always ask the how are you questions
Right.
as you're passing by people.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be open and honest as much.
Oh,
Because
no.
they're just passing by you.
Exactly. Hey, we're all put together here in church. We can't. They're like, yeah, I'm great. Yeah. Yeah.
Mess somebody up,
Uh-huh.
do that.
Yeah.
How are you? You just, oh, you actually know what? My dog died. My kid went to jail. My guy.
Oh yeah, you got to. Sometimes you got to engage. Maybe that's your way of asking for help. Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't believe it if I told you, right? Yeah.
To her point, they won't be expecting a legitimate answer of how you were doing. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a formality that most of us kind of go through
Right.
the motion of, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm great, man. And that's it.
Right.
They expect a conversation.
Exactly.
You hit them with some problems and like, don't be watching stutter. It's kind of funny.
But it gets back to the serving real quick, where that comes from. Just so you, yeah, it is. Like you hear chow, right? Italians, hey, chow, right. You know what that comes from? Schiavi is the actual Venetian word. It's not even Italian, it's the Venetian word. I'm your slave. That's what that means. I'm here to serve you. What can I do for you? That's what chow actually is. All right. So getting back to your greetings. It's a Venetian word. Yeah, schiavi is the actual word. It's actually, and of course, everything gets LOL these days, so it's shortened from that from years ago. It's just chow, right? But that's what the actual meaning is. I am your slave. What can I do for you? How are you? How can I help your problem? Right? That's what it is. Yeah. So anyway.